Ryan just busted secretly working with Obama to keep his most sacred law alive by Al Waisman for DailyVine.com. Once again, we see Speaker Paul Ryan showing his true colors. Although he fooled most of us conservatives into thinking he was one of us in the time leading up to and during the failed 2012 Mitt Romney presidential run, where he ran as Romney's vice presidential pick, once he became Speaker of the House, things changed, and not for the better. In February of 2010, Congressman Paul Ryan, as ranking member of the House Budget Committee, referred to the Obamacare as a bill that was full of gimmicks and smoke and mirrors. His way of describing the law was so unpopular that the publication, such as the Wall Street Journal, published his remarks in an op-ed piece. But that was then, and this is now, via the Federalist. While most of Washington remains consumed on the drama surrounding immigration negotiations, leaders in the House have quietly pursued other policy objectives, according to multiple sources on Capitol Hill. House leader, particularly Speaker Paul Ryan, have concocted a plan that would, one, use a budget gimmick that arguably violates the law, two, to bail out Obamacare, and three, provide taxpayer funding to plans that cover abortion. As a certain congressman from Wisconsin said back in 2012, with allies like that, who needs the left? Budgetary smoke and mirrors, Ryan obliquely alluded to the plan in a recent interview discussing a bipartisan opportunity to implement policies like reinsurance. Ryan's recent positioning has led Senator Susan Collins to conclude that Congress would enact such a stabilization package in an appropriations measure. In a nutshell, the gimmick under consideration would have the Congressional Budget Office, CBO, raise the budgetary baseline so Congress can lower the baseline and spend the artificial savings, quote. It's a Ponzi scheme of the first order, the kind of thing Bernie Madoff would have been proud of. Here's how it would work. Congress would direct CBO to assume that Obamacare's cost-sharing reductions, CSRs, would not be paid, while the Trump administration did cut those subsidies off last October due to the lack of a constitutional appropriation for them. The budget scorekeeping conventions discussed in detail below indicate that CBO would still assume the subsidies would continue. However, Congress would instruct CBO to override that precedent. CBO would then increase the spending baseline for Obamacare because of the interactions between CSRs and the law's insurance premium subsidies. Essentially, eliminating the former would cause spending on the latter to rise as insurers raise premiums to reflect the lack of CSR payments. Under the law, insurers must reduce co-sharing for low-income individuals regardless, so they would adjust premiums upward, as they did in most states for 2018, to reflect the cost of this regulatory mandate. Higher premiums will lead to higher federal subsidies for those premiums at $194 billion over a decade, according to an estimate CBO released last August. After instructing CBO to assume that CSR's funds would not be appropriated, Congress would then turn around and appropriate those funds for a defined period of perhaps 2 years. Having permanently increased the spending baseline in Step 2 above, CBO would then score a big temporarily appropriating cost-sharing reduction as saving money for that defined period, because spending on CSRs would lower spending on premium subsidies, the opposite of the effect described above. Congress would then take the savings, quote, from appropriating funds for CSRs, which, as explained above, consist not of legitimate deficit reduction so much as a phony gimmick derived from playing budgetary games, and spend that money on reinsurance and other corporate welfare payments to health insurers. There you have it, a fiscal Ponzi scheme that would give health insurers their two major desires: cost-sharing reductions and reinsurance in one big bailout. If it passes once for a 2 or 3 year period, you can bet your life this scheme would turn into an Obamacare perpetual bailout machine, with insurers coming back time and time again for more crony capitalist cash. Violates budgeting principles. This plan not only violates the pretense that Republicans care about repealing as opposed to bailing out Obamacare, but it also violates budget scorekeeping principles laid out in statute. Specifically, Section 257B1 of the Balanced Budget and Emergency Deficit Control Act of 1985, the Gramm-Rudman-Hollings statute, includes the following direction: when developing the budgetary baseline, laws providing or creating direct spending and receipts are assumed to operate in the manner specified in those laws for each year, and funding for entitlement authority is assumed to be adequate to make all payments required by those laws. Emphasis: mine. Section 1402C3A of Obamacare includes such entitlement authority. It states that the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, shall make periodic and timely payments to health insurers for cost-sharing reductions, emphasis: mine. Granted, the law does not include an appropriation for HHS to make those payments. The lack of appropriation prompted the House of Representatives to sue the Obama administration for exceeding its constitutional authority, and caused the Trump administration to stop the payments last fall. But whether an appropriation actually exists is immaterial to the separate and distinct question of whether the law requires the Secretary to make payments. Obamacare includes such entitlement authority over CSRs. Therefore, under the Gramm-Rudman-Hollings Act, the budget baseline should assume that those cost-sharing reductions will be paid. In its August 2017 report on CSR, CBO agreed in a section regarding the budgetary treatment of the cost-sharing payments. The budget analyst noted that the agencies have recorded the CSR's payments as direct spending, that is, spending that does not require appropriation action, a conclusion reached because the cost-sharing subsidies were viewed as a form of entitlement authority, parentheses in original italics mine. CBO provides a very clear response to the argument that because the Trump administration stopped the payments, the budgetary baseline should not score CSRs as direct spending. In reality, the entitlement authority, the underlying language of Section 1402C3A of Obamacare, prompted CBO to score the cost-sharing reductions as direct spending in the first place. All budgetary scorekeepers, both CBO and the Office of Management and Budget, have never disputed the validity of the entitlement, as opposed to the separate and distinct legal question of whether a valid appropriation exists. That entitlement language remains unchanged. Therefore, the budgetary treatment of CSRs should remain unchanged unless Republican leaders attempt to strong-arm CBO as an accomplice to their scheme for bailing out Obamacare. Dropping principles and promises to win an election. After reading all this, some may wonder why Republican congressional leaders have taken the time to concoct such a scheme, in part because Congress wrongly repealed only the individual mandate as part of the tax reform bill. Members worry about big premium spikes as a result of their actions, which will hit right around the time of the midterm elections this fall. Just as Senate staff talked openly last summer about how they structured their stability funds to yield premium reductions in November of 2018, House leaders now want to stabilize the insurance markets this fall. Or to put it more cynically, they value preserving power more than they do their principles. Make no mistake, this plot would violate just about every principle conservatives hold dear. It makes no attempt to repeal Obamacare. Instead, it strengthens and entrenches it. It relies on budgetary smoke and mirrors to raise federal spending, a gimmick so laughable that it would destroy any credible claim Ryan could make towards fiscal responsibility and honest budgeting. It would also increase taxpayer funding of plans that cover abortion, because Democrats will never agree to this scheme if it includes robust pro-life protections in law, as doing so would effectively prohibit exchange plans from covering abortion. Back in 2012, when former House Speaker Newt Gingrich attacked conservative proposals to reform Medicare, Ryan famously asked, with allies like that, who needs the left? 6 years later, given the shady nature of the Republican leadership scheme to bail out Obamacare, some may be saying the same thing about him. Now Ryan has made a 180-degree turn. Instead of following President Trump's lead in letting Obamacare fall under its own weight, he is looking for plans to bail it out by circumventing the order the president gave to stop making CSR payments from the federal government as of last October. Stopping the payments will effectively reduce the time in which Obamacare will suffer its impending collapse. Republicans seem to forget who are the people who put them in office. Speaker Ryan, instead of following President Trump's lead in stopping Obamacare, has decided to go the way of Senator John McCain of Arizona, who campaigned on the repeal of Obamacare, but when it came time to vote, he was the vote which kept it going. Because of health issues, chances are McCain won't be around when his current term is up, but Paul Ryan is young and has a ways to go. And it's doubtful the lobbyists he is catering to are the ones who will get him reelected, you see? So in other words, to draw on the federal government, it would have imploded anyway. But Ryan is looking to fund them again. So he's actually working against Donald Trump and the people that voted Donald Trump in. He's going against everything we stand for. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And again, thank you so much for watching.